There has been a lot of talk
Yeah,
that this
past
upcoming
60
Atlantic
degrees, which
hurricane
is
season
already
will be very, very active. But before I give you my forecast, I want to see how you think this season will play out. I'll show you the information I've considered, including past hurricane seasons, forecasts, recent trends, and hurricane ingredients, so that you can make an informed decision. First, though, let's give some context. There are three categories to consider when predicting how active this season will be: named storms, hurricanes, and major hurricanes. A named storm is any tropical storm that reaches the tropical storm threshold of max sustained winds of 39 miles per hour. A recent example of a named storm was Tropical Storm Ophelia from last season, which impacted the Atlantic seaboard with heavy rain and flooding, but also includes stronger storms that fall in the hurricane scale, like Hurricane Nigel or Hurricane Idalia, which were also from the 2023 season. Hurricanes are tropical cyclones that achieve maximum sustained winds of 74 miles per hour or higher. They are ranked on the Saffir-Simpson hurricane wind scale from 1 to 5, depending on wind speed, so they can look like Category 1 Hurricane Nicole or as strong as Category 5, like Hurricane Ian, both of which occurred in 2022. A major hurricane is a very strong tropical cyclone that reaches wind speeds of 111 miles per hour, so all Category 3, 4, and 5 storms on the Saffir-Simpson scale. A recent example of a major hurricane is Hurricane Maria from 2017. Given those definitions, let's set some baselines and you can tweak your forecast as you go. From the 1991 hurricane season until 2020, the average number of named storms per season was 14.4. 7.2 of those named storms reach hurricane status, with 3.2 per year becoming Category 3 or stronger. The least active season since the start of 1900 was in 1914, when only one tropical cyclone reached tropical storm intensity, but a more modern down year for named storms was in both 1992 and in 1994, when 7 storms became a tropical storm. So I will make that our base range and go from there. A number of years haven't experienced any major hurricanes, with the last year without seeing one being in 2013. That year also saw the lowest hurricane number at 2 in the past 40 years. Given all of that information, I would say it is very unlikely for the 2024 season to have less than 7 named storms, 2 hurricanes, but 0 major hurricanes could be on the table. Now, let's see what our top range should be. Many of us remember the recent 2020 hurricane season, which was very active. With 30 named storms, it set the mark for the most since 1900. It is also tied with the infamous 2005 season for most major hurricanes at 7. That season had 4 Category 5 storms, including Katrina, Emily, Rita, and Wilma, which are some of the strongest and most devastating hurricanes in the history of the Atlantic Basin. That season also set the bar for the most hurricanes as well, with 15. So for that reason, unless you believe that this year will be the most active season of all time, I'm going to say we will see less than 30 named storms, 15 hurricanes, and 7 major ones. Alright, now that we have those parameters set, let's figure out how to narrow them down. I'm going to start by looking at the ingredients necessary for hurricane development and what I think those will look like this summer. You can pick which ingredients you think are the most important. In general, there are 6 key ingredients to make a hurricane. Those include warm ocean water, high humidity, an unstable atmosphere, a near-surface disturbance, the Coriolis force, and low wind shear. I'm going to knock a couple of those off of my forecast based on some assumptions. For one, I won't worry about the Coriolis force since the area of development for most Atlantic storms is far enough away from the equator to impact storm development. I'm also going to assume that we see sufficiently humid conditions and near-surface disturbances. These parameters are hard to forecast because they depend on the pattern of the African easterly jet, the West African monsoon, and the presence of dry Saharan air. Typically, 60 to 80 waves in the African easterly jet during peak hurricane season cross the Atlantic, which creates an average of 7 to 9 tropical cyclones. These are factors to definitely monitor week to week during the hurricane season, but are difficult to predict this far out. Even if all other ingredients are met, you still need an initiation point to start a tropical cyclone. So that leaves ocean temperatures, instability, and wind shear. Let's see what those might look like. Sea surface temperatures are the fuel for tropical cyclones, where warmer temperatures mean stronger convection and ultimately stronger storms. The general rule of thumb is that water temperatures above 26.5 degrees Celsius or about 80 degrees Fahrenheit are necessary for development, although storms can cross into water cooler than that and still survive. As for current sea surface temperatures, much of the tropical North Atlantic already has temperatures above 26.5 degrees Celsius, which I expect to continue to warm up as we head into peak sun angle and into the summer heat. Assuming we have warm ocean temperatures in the Atlantic, it would also lead to increased instability and ultimately more tropical activity. Warm water heats the air around it, and the warm air likes to rise because it is less dense than the colder air higher up in the atmosphere. This instability makes it easier for storms to develop since nothing is preventing their growth upwards. So, if you think that these warm sea surface temperatures continue into the summer, you can also expect increased instability. Wind shear is how the wind changes direction and speed as you move farther up into the sky. Wind shear is necessary for storms to move, but if it's too strong, it can mess with the structure of a tropical cyclone, either preventing it from forming or stunting its growth. Strong wind shear was predicted for the 2023 season due to the presence of a strong El Nino in the Pacific. Typically, the above average temperatures in the Pacific during an El Nino mess with the circulation of air around the equator in the Atlantic, causing stronger wind shear. However, that didn't end up happening last year, as the wind shear for the second half of the season was mostly below average. In the end, the 2023 season saw above average named storms due to the warm sea surface temperatures and average hurricane and major hurricane numbers. This season, El Nino is switching towards La Nina, as sea surface temperatures in the tropical Pacific are cooling. The impact of La Nina on the Atlantic is typically reduced wind shear, which would support the idea of an above average season. But it's not a foregone conclusion that wind shear will be below average just because La Nina is expected. So, let's take everything into consideration. The average season as of late is 14.4 named storms, 7.2 hurricanes, and 3.2 major hurricanes. The range from least active to most active seasons is from 7 to 30 named storms, 2 to 15 hurricanes, and 0 to 7 major ones. I would suggest your prediction to at least fall somewhere in between those numbers. Warm ocean temperatures and an emerging La Nina would suggest favorable conditions for cyclone development, but El Nino conditions still exist and might impact the start of the season. Or maybe you think Saharan dust will keep the atmosphere cool and dry, limiting cyclone development. If you want to take some other forecasts into consideration, a few universities have published their predictions for the season. All have so far called for an active season, with Colorado State University tallying 23 named storms, 11 hurricanes, and 5 major hurricanes. The University of Arizona predicting 21 named storms and matching Colorado State's hurricane totals. North Carolina State University providing a range of 15 to 20 named storms, 10 to 12 hurricanes, and 3 to 4 major ones. Before I give you my final count, let me know in the comments what factors you think will be the most important and how many storms you think will occur. Okay, my final forecast for the 2024 Atlantic hurricane season is 18 named storms, 8 hurricanes, and 4 major hurricanes. My reasoning? The main driver for an active 2024 season will be continued very warm water conditions. This will provide small disturbances plenty of energy to tap into to reach tropical storm status. Since we are still in a transition from El Nino to La Nina, I don't think the weakening effects on wind shear will be prevalent until the end of the season. So I expect average wind shear for the most part before below average for September through November. I do want to supply the disclaimer that not all of these storms, if any at all, will make landfall in the US or elsewhere in the Atlantic. On average, the US sees around 2 hurricanes making landfall per year. But we've seen years like 2015 where no hurricane made landfall on US soil, and it's even more rare for a major hurricane to make landfall in the US, with 97 Category 3 or higher storms since 1851. So if you live on the Atlantic coast, there's a very good chance that you will not be impacted by any of the storms that we will see later this year. But it's always recommended to have a hurricane plan ready to go. Not too bad, right?